Welcome back to World War Live. I'm your host, Conrad Franz, here again with the Tuesday evening stream. Let me know if you can hear me. If there are any audio issues, please let me know. I don't want to go on any incredible rants while I am muted. So I'm looking in the chat. We got our boy Alan in the chat. We got some people that like eating salt. I'm enjoying salt and meat. And again, I know we're pretty far out from Pascha at this point, but I'm still very much enjoying the fact that I am not fasting and I'm not abstaining from meat and other such things. Seems like the audio is good. Be sure to send in any super chats if you want me to talk about something, if you want me to answer a question, if you want me to address something, I will read it. Obviously, I love interacting with everybody here. It's a great time. Here at the beginning of the stream, of course, worldwarnow.co. That is where you can find everything, including the re-uploads of these streams. Obviously, those are on YouTube as well, but Substack, it's very much there too. You can get behind the paywall. We just did a fantastic Ether Hour episode today with our friend Truth Teller, fresh off his debate victory against Haz Ali Hamoud, the leader of the American Communist Party, the MAGA communists. Sorry, adjusting the levels here a little bit. Maybe I need to raise my seat. Oh, that's a little better. Yes. But yes, fresh off Truth Teller's debate with the MAGA communist Haz al-Din, he came on with us. We break down the debate. We debunk some of Haz's more ridiculous claims. We go into, why a lot of the things were said about the Tsar, the slanderous things that were said, the lies about, the reality of Judeo-Bolshevism and some of these other things that everyone likes to debate. And of course, in the immediate aftermath of the debate, Truth Teller was easily winning in all the polls, asking who won which part of the debate, until, of course, Jackson Hinkle and his 2 million plus botted followers came in and unfortunately skewed the entire situation against Truth Teller. So many people who didn't even listen to the debate obviously were voting. So that's unfortunate to hear, but it's a great discussion. Obviously, we had our debate years ago at this point with Haz, Dimitri, me, and Momchilo. So that is it's an old beef, a classic old beef. And we got our first $20 super chat from Alan Wong. He says, "Christ is risen, salt in lieu of shekels, gold, Bitcoin, etc." I mean, what does Taylor Marshall say? He says, be the salt of the earth, go out there and be salty, something like that. So the Bible does tell us to be the salt of the earth. So I'm a salt enjoyer. So thank you, Alan, one of the most loyal world warriors now. I don't know the expression, ether pilled members, of course, somebody part of the Ether Hour rank. So thank you very much, Alan. Now, people are asking where the debate was. It was on X. I believe it was on a space hosted by Suleiman or Myron Gaines or somebody like that, one of those big Twitter space hosts. So that was where that happened. You can go to Truth Teller's page. I think Dimitri was retweeting it as well. Truth Teller's been on the show before, so going to be a good episode. Hopefully we can release that in the next 2 days. Other big news, of course. Maybe I'll screen share here. Problem is, it's still premiering. I don't want to interrupt or cut in so people don't get the full context. But if people see Buck Johnson's show Counterflow, if you go on the channel, you'll be able to see that I was on there recently. We discuss World War III, the prophecies, a lot of geopolitical things going on and how it relates to what the saints said. So I think it's a pretty good show. We talk about obviously the Israel-Iran situation. We talk about Russia-Ukraine. We talk about China, Turkey, Russia, all those sorts of things. So go to Buck Johnson's YouTube channel. I mean, especially when this, don't leave this stream, but the moment this stream is over, head on over to Buck Johnson's channel and watch my latest appearance on Counterflow. That's going to be a very good thing. I'm excited to watch it. Not that I sit around all day watching my own content, but that's going to be something big that I discuss. I was going to share some screen here. I don't know if I was even going to react to it, but the big news that we sort of missed in the latest episode of World War Now happened, well after we recorded it, was Netanyahu's big speech. Obviously, it's some big Ukraine stuff as well, but that's a little better. Netanyahu came out, and again, the naked, power grab, the naked disruption, the naked sabotage by Israel of the U.S.-Iran negotiations it just couldn't be more obvious at this point. And Netanyahu came on stage with this, and he talked about how the only viable option for the Iranian nuclear deal needs to be the Libya method. I mean, through the Libya method, through the Libya means, through the Libya platform. And the Libya platform just means completely destroy the state effectively. Obviously, Libya allowed the West to come in and basically dismantle its nuclear program under the promises that the regime would be protected. We know, of course, that there was no protection. Gaddafi was overthrown by a conglomerate of forces, and his own people, the people that we supported, dragged him out into the streets and sodomized him to death with a bayonet. So that is, that's what Netanyahu is signaling when he openly talks about the Libya method, or whatever, his specific usage of the word Libya and how it would be done is utilized. But ultimately, the reality is that he's just completely sabotaging Trump's attempt to end the escalating conflict with Iran. And Iran obviously is interested in reaching a deal. They have many red lines, one of those lines being that they will still be able to enrich uranium, and Israel and the United States were attempting to insist that any enriched uranium that Iran used in its nuclear program needed to be imported, which would obviously mean there would be a number of international checks, and the fact that they would, from that perspective, there would be zero chance that Iran would ever be able to nuclearize or weaponize any of the uranium that it was using for civilian purposes. Ultimately, Israel, I believe, wants the entire Iranian nuclear capability, whether it be for civilian electrical purposes or otherwise, to be completely dismantled, on top of their even non-nuclear missile research program. The rumors are that huge explosion at the port in southern Iran recently, which many people may have seen the news about, the idea is that was actually some kind of nitrate or some other specific chemical. I'm forgetting the name. I'm not a chemist. That is used in ballistic missile production that had come from China, which wouldn't be a big surprise that China had been sort of outfitting and supplying the equipment and the chemicals needed for the expansive Iranian missile program. But it seems that if this, if that was true, then the idea that this was some kind of terror attack or some kind of sabotage by enemies of Iran seems very likely. But the Iranians, and I think it's because this is an unfortunate reality, but the reason I believe the Iranians are never as willing to call many of the disasters that befall their military, their government, their people, such as the helicopter death of Ibrahim Raisi, for example, last year in the Azerbaijan region of Iran. I believe there are many pieces of evidence that point to that being obviously some kind of intentional sabotage, but due to the fact that Iran is barely capable of keeping pace with Israel on the escalation ladder, they can't be just pointing out every little thing that Israel is doing. I don't say little thing as if it's irrelevant, but Iran knows that if these huge things that happen completely under their nose are broadcast to all of the Iranian population as this was Israel, they attacked us, the demand is going to be that Iran escalates to a level that, unfortunately, the Iranian regime is likely uncomfortable with. The Iranian regime seem, as far as I can tell, a open Israeli strike, huge airstrike across the country on all of their nuclear capabilities is what it will take for Iran to respond to the point where they are digging in their heels and effectively declaring war. And I think that's what the prophecies are all about at the end of the day. Because unfortunately, despite, again, I have many criticisms of Donald Trump and how he has handled the Israelis and the Iranians, and even at this point, the Russia-Ukraine situation. But I do believe that he himself is not interested in going to war. Unfortunately, we did see that recent post. He knows about brinksmanship. He's obviously talking about, I'm not going to let the Israelis drag us into war, but if the situation arises, I'll go there myself, which definitely not a good sign. But Trump may think that is, very good brinksmanship, that he's getting to the point where even the Iranians are like, oh, maybe this guy's serious. Maybe he's going to go to war even without the Israelis. Well, if you're doing that while the Israelis are pushing the envelope and then willing to just go to war themselves, you haven't left yourself enough runway to save that situation and draw it back once the Israelis, hit the button and go nuclear, as it were, and fulfill the prophecy of St. Paisios and the elder Theodore Agiopharangides of Crete and the other, many saints that verify what's going on. I mean, St. Paisios, of course, talking about Gaza turning into a stadium, being flattened, as it were, which has already very much been fulfilled. We're still seeing, the Israeli genocide in Gaza continue. We're still seeing Israel target parts of Lebanon, Hezbollah forces in the southern Beirut suburbs. So the greater Israel war is very much ongoing. Recent news today as well came out, which, again, Putin clearly is aware that he can't have too poor of a Pyrrhic victory when it comes to the Ukraine situation. That apparently the negotiations between the US and Russia are stalling at this point because Putin is demanding full control over all the oblasts that were annexed into Russia, not just the territories that Russia currently controls. Most importantly, this is in reference to Zaporozhye and Kherson cities, which Kherson, of course, was retreated out of. Zaporozhye was never actually taken. And unfortunately, while this is good that Putin isn't willing to give that up, if they do give those things to Putin, it's clear that Putin is very much willing to give up any footholds that the Russians have in Sumy, Kharkov, Chernigov, any of these other places, just to take the fullness of Luhansk, Donetsk, Kherson, and Zaporozhye, and then of course have Crimea internationally recognized as Russia, which, again, it would be a Pyrrhic victory. It would be a victory nonetheless, not even the worst Pyrrhic victory that could have occurred, but it will still be Pyrrhic. And unfortunately, I'm not sure if it will do everything necessary to prevent a future conflict, let alone to prevent, the purpose of all of this, which is the defeat, the Balkanization, the Judaization, the secularization of, the Orthodox Russian Empire that is existing currently in some way, shape, or form in the Russian Federation. So that's the situation there. If anyone has any other specific issues you want to talk about, don't be afraid to leave a super chat. Check out worldwarnow.co to get behind the paywall. We've got some amazing episodes coming out this week. But the other big news, of course, is the India-Kashmir conflict. India-Pakistan Kashmir conflict. I'm going to have to hold on. Yeah, okay, we're good. Gonna have to go to my Telegram here. There we go. So we have this breaking news. This is from this afternoon earlier. It says Pakistan's information minister says Pakistan has confirmed intelligence that India will launch a military attack within 24 to 36 hours against Pakistani territory. Pakistan's information minister warns Pakistan's armed forces will decisively respond and catastrophic consequences could follow in the region if such a thing happens. The implication there, of course, being nukes, which India and Pakistan have in some capacity. And look, I'm not picking sides in this one per se. I'd like to say I'm praying for peace. Of course I'm praying for peace, obviously, but I do think that this situation is just one of these conflicts that's been going on for thousands of years. It's fundamentally a religious conflict between Hindus and Muslims. A lot of Pakistanis and Indians are very similar. Obviously, the other surrounding Muslim countries are getting involved. Iran is trying to be neutral. Turkey obviously would be more likely to side with Pakistan due to the Islamic Sunni connection. There are some Turkic people in many parts of Pakistan as well. You, of course, have many other Sunni countries. A lot of countries that obviously are anti-Israel are going to side with Pakistan because Israel, look, India, as well as the Indian diaspora on the internet, are truly Israel's strongest soldiers. There's nobody that loves Israel as much as some of these Jeets on the internet that, the type of guy that's like, Israel woman, I love you, Israel woman, bold and beautiful. We've all seen, these types of videos. One of the videos coming out that was sort of going viral is a video of an Indian guy at the resort where the terrorist attack occurred. Of course, the Indian authorities are accusing Pakistan of directly funding, directing, supporting this terror attack in Kashmir. Meanwhile, certain Pakistani news outlets are saying that it was an Indian false flag. I have no idea what's true. Really don't follow the politics of these countries too closely. But the video has this guy ziplining at the resort while his Indian brethren are slaughtered below by Pakistanis. You hear the gunshots, you see people falling over, and the guy's just smiling, taking a selfie on the zip line, which is it's quite a video to say the least. But I think the situation with India and Pakistan is going to be one to watch, especially considering who's going to take whose side. Specifically, ironically, the Iranians might be able to stay neutral on this one. The Russians may even be able to stay neutral on this one. The real situation will be China and the United States. The United States will be siding with India for a number of reasons, one of them being India's alliance and support for Israel, China siding with Pakistan, one of the reasons being Pakistan has less of a border dispute with India and has less access and is sort of less of a flank for Western powers on other vital parts of China's geography. Obviously, there's the Arunachal Pradesh and the Ladakh regions, which are contested between China and India. India also, of course, has access to a lot of Chinese Tibet, and of course, Pakistan is the ability to help, is a major part of course, the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative. And then there's, of course, the whole East Turkestan situation. I see we've got Buck Johnson exiles, people that were watching my show with Buck premiering, coming to my stream now. So I appreciate it. Hope everybody enjoyed the Counterflow episode. I always enjoy talking to Buck, my fellow Mount Athos partner who was with me the whole step of the way. Everywhere we were, Buck was also there with me, all the way from Zografu to St. Andrew's Skeet outside of Kaudias. It was a great time. So thank you, everybody, for coming over. We've got $5 from I Like to Eat Salt. Thank you, sir. Greatly appreciated. All donations are very helpful here. He says, seeing as you and Dimitri are quite prolific, any tips for overcoming sloth? While I do admit that I do a good job of streaming and putting out multiple episodes every week, I do struggle with it myself. Ultimately, I was able to get the show started while I was working a job. That was probably some of the hardest time, was getting the 2 shows. This was before I did the stream, obviously. So I did the 2 shows. First, it was only 1 show, so it wasn't that bad, while, of course, working full-time at Turley Talks. But working full-time at Turley Talks got me to boost the show a little bit, helping out with Dr. Steve's audience and some of the things going on there. So it did help. So by the time I lost that job, I was actually able to dive right into doing this full-time. And I was able to increase the ether hour output, because it used to really be only 2 or 3 ether hours a month. And now it's very much 4, sometimes even 5 a month, depending on how things go. And of course, we have the stream. We're much more active on the socials. We're doing more and more. But that being said, I think a lot of keys to overcoming sloth, I think, is making sure that you have like a big part of, a lot of this stuff that people do, whether it's a job that you do, is you got to make sure that, you've got a bit of control over your schedule, in the sense that you have times that you have to work, that you have to do stuff. And then those times that you don't, you have to make sure you capitalize on those and don't just, spend that time, I don't know, kind of doing nothing. You have to intentionally rest, or you have to intentionally read or do other activities. And I struggle with this all the time. I'm just getting back on a better reading schedule, which is going to be critical, not just to the content of the show, but just helping me better use my time. But part of the reason I'm able to do it so much is I do something that I love. So it is tough. I do feel for people that are just doing the grind, they're working the 9 to 5s, they're doing their jobs, because I recognize not everybody can start a show or, write a book or do whatever it is that, their heart may desire, be an athlete. But at the same time, I think, there are certain things that are so soul crushing that I wouldn't advise you to do them almost in any situation. And I'm not you, so I can't speak for you. There are certain perhaps menial things that others may enjoy that I just can't relate to. But I think a big part of it is just being willing to, knowing that you just have to do it. Because for at least a lot of people that start shows or do these kinds of things, when they don't see the immediate results, in a few weeks or a few months of doing a regularly scheduled thing, they ultimately just give up. And the key is you have to just keep going and going and going till eventually it just pays off. And I guess that's not true for everybody. And I did have, a bit of a leg up, at my previous job with all of this. But there were some days, when you don't want to record the show, you don't want to record the stream. Tuesdays, unfortunately, aren't as free as I would like them to be anymore. So sometimes when 7:45 rolls around, I'm like, oh boy, got to do the stream. But you just got to do it, because if you don't do it, then the next one's not going to be as popular, and just less and less people are going to watch. You have to, just stay consistent. So this is one of the things, is forcing yourself to do it, just like you force yourself to do your prayer rule sometimes, just like you force yourself to go to the gym, all those sorts of things. In many ways, you just got to do it. And if it's one of those things where it's so miserable that while you may be able to force yourself to go to the gym, you may be able to force yourself to go to every service for Holy Week, you may be able to all these other things. Not saying those aren't enjoyable things to do, but anything that might seem hard to do, you have to do when you're tired. If it's becoming so hard to do that for work, especially if it's not making you the money that you need, then definitely might be time to look for a different occupation. But again, I'm just a guy, can't give too much life advice. But I appreciate that you appreciate the prolific amount of shows. In theory, there might be space for one other piece of content. I still don't know what that is. Ultimately, I think I'm going to have to roll that time into articles and writing more. But I've just been so out of the loop and groove on writing regularly. I'm so locked in on recording and streaming and these sorts of things that that might be a little bit too much to ask for. But in theory, I want to be able to lock in on some more articles, specifically about the Cyprus situation. Ironically enough, like that's something that I think is valuable. Someone says his Telegram message is overwhelming. Yeah, the Telegram, I got a lot on there. It's if someone messages me on Telegram, wants to talk on Telegram, you have to be messaging me somewhere else saying I messaged you on Telegram, so I can add you to my actual folder that I use to talk to people, because I've got hundreds and hundreds of chats and channels open on Telegram at this point. But hold on, I'm gonna hide the screen for 1 second while I get something else open on Telegram so we don't dox anybody or show anyone's private messages. Let's get this back. But this is my my saved chat channel on Telegram, which has a lot of skits. You can see the George Floyd Masonic ritual. Unfortunately, I can't play audio on Telegram tabs, but I can explain sort of what's going on. These thumbnails will sort of refresh my memory. This might be a bit of a schizo section of the stream, so apologies to any normies out there that aren't ready for some of this. But the title of the stream, and I realize I haven't been referencing the titles much when I go live because I just dive right into it, but the title of the stream is "What is the Endgame?" And of course, many people know the Endgame from a geopolitical perspective is Israel's Greater Israel Project, destroying the last Islamic regional power that could stand against them, which is Iran. Because unfortunately, in my perspective at this point, with Putin, at least from a Zionist perspective, Russia is not currently a threat per se to the Zionist regime. Russia could easily become a threat depending on who takes power and what happens, frankly, with this war that Israel is trying to, trying to escalate towards. Things could change rapidly, but Iran is the enemy right now. But that's sort of the Zionist enemy. That's sort of the Zionist project. And I've talked about this before, how from the perspective of world Jewry, there are, there's kind of a two-pronged fork, and it has to do with Jewish factionalism. There's, of course, the right-wing Zionists, people like Netanyahu. You've got your Ben Shapiro's, these types of people that want to secure the homeland within Palestine for the Jewish people, which ultimately needs to exist because of supposed anti-Semitism worldwide. Everyone knows, Jews supposedly kicked out of 109 countries. Because of that reality, Israel must exist. Meanwhile, you have the cosmopolitan, multinational, dispersed Jewish diaspora across the world, that are not always particularly Zionist. George Soros supports the liberal opposition in Israel. He is opposed to a lot of Netanyahu and some of the more religious Zionist messages. But ultimately, the situation is at home is a little bit different. It isn't all exactly about securing the Jewish homeland in Palestine. It's very much about securing a sort of social, political safety for the Jewish people within the rest of the world. And this is why we get mass migration. This is why we see the Jewish diaspora pushing social degeneracy. This is why we see them opposing things like ethnic nationalism, certain things within the scientific community, traditional Christianity, of course. These occur so that these places, America, Western Europe, of course, parts of the Islamic world, obviously, South America, the Jewish diaspora exists heavily with all these places, Canada, the, ANSAS, New Zealand, Australia, this is the faction that secures that. And they work in tandem, even if it seems like they're opposed to one another. Because if one of the plans starts to go downhill, the other plan is likely thriving due to how each of these aspects of world Jewry have interacted with the political parties and forces in each other's countries. And of course, obviously, the show World War Now, we spend a lot of time talking about the war for Greater Israel and the Zionist entity's goals, Netanyahu's goals, Itamar Ben-Gvir, Smotrich, their active participation in the genocide of Palestinians and the expansion of the borders of the state of Israel. But one of the bigger plans that they also have, I think that coincides with the broader plan, you have these organizations like the Zionist Organization of America, the World Jewish Congress, which people say, what do you mean world Jewry, this, that, or the other? It's like, well, there's literally the World Jewish Congress headed by Robert Lauer, who openly gives huge speeches where most world leaders are in attendance about how if you're anti-Semitic or go against the Jewish people or Israel, you need to be thrown in jail. So that's sort of what people are referring to when they say world Jewry, the Jewish lobby, the sort of world Jewish diaspora. That's what's being referred to. But what you're seeing here, these schizo thumbnails here, USA Genocide 2021 to 2025, I make no claims to those dates, but we are currently in 2025. And this is talking about, you see Project Zephyr and Project Pogo from David Goldberg's final words. And David Goldberg was supposedly someone who had access to whistleblower testimony, had access to recordings, to documents from within the White House and things within Trump's first term. And he talks a lot about how a lot of these things having to do with COVID, a lot of these things having to do with, I would connect it to what's going on right now with the deportation of students from Ivy League universities who had student visas or permanent residents, just for example, going against Israel and the Zionists in favor of Palestine. Basically, these two projects, and maybe I'm mixing them up, but I believe that Project Zephyr basically was an initiative meant to, it was TTID, to tag, track, and ID enemies of Israel, enemies of world Jewry, people that were anti-Semitic, people that were anti-Zionist, people that were pro-Palestine, these sorts of things. And then Project Pogo was basically the widespread elimination of all of these people. Like some of these videos are talking about like they're going to show up at your house in a black van late at night and take you away, and no one's ever going to know what happened to you. And I was learning about this. When was this saved in my chat? Yeah, see, this is 31st of May, 2020. So this was peak COVID. And this David Goldberg guy was basically found dead in his apartment after he had started talking about some of this. And now there's a foundation, the Friends of David Goldberg. I really need to go back and watch some of these again. I should have, I thought I remembered some of it perhaps better than I did. But this is, the reason this is becoming relevant is because Trump won. Again, he won in 2024. And we know there was a lot of censorship under Biden. There was a lot of information collecting after COVID. Of course, the sort of medical information state continued to escalate for a bit before kind of what recently occurred with Trump. And the idea is that there are people within Trump's orbit that are very much obsessed with this idea of doing everything you can to secure the world for the Jews. And one of these people is Stephen Miller. I see people in the chat saying a Palantir op, maybe President J.D. Vance will implement it. That's exactly where I'm going with this. And everyone's talking about Stephen Miller. He's so based. You talk about these deportations. Besides the fact that apparently Stephen Miller just takes credit for things that everybody else does. According to David Goldberg in these videos, he was one of the most eager proponents of these operations, of these, effectively covert hate speech laws, where they can kind of build a case against you. And once they determine that you're enough of a threat on behalf of the state of Israel, and I believe Palantir, Anduril, OpenAI, potentially, of course, Twitter, X, Grok, all these things will be used for this purpose. People are wondering, why is X, Twitter, allowing so much of this anti-Semitism? Well, there's a good chance that it could be for the purposes of tag tracking and IDing you, so that then when the situation emerges that they have achieved a sort of AI, enough of a net over everybody with information and AI, and Israel is secured enough, perhaps this will need to occur after Iran and some of these other enemies of Israel are secured on the geopolitical scale, then basically the night of the long knives against noticers is going to happen. And look, I'm verified on X. I sent them my information. Supposedly they're Israeli firms that are in charge of a lot of this. And, they've got my info, right? They can figure out my address. Substack, look, I love Substack, but who helped start Substack? Barry Weiss, like foaming at the mouth, radical Jewish supremacist Zionist. They've got my information. They've got my home address. They've got my payment stuff. So you all know that if I disappear randomly, I'm not suicidal. I would never kill myself. But maybe I got vanned. Maybe I got pogoed. And so, yeah, the first one is Project Zypher, Zyphr. And the other one is Project Pogo. And look, I'm not confirmed on all of this. I can't necessarily vouch for the entirety of the David Goldberg story or any of this, that, or the other. But I do know that with what's going on with Palantir and what's going on with a lot of other things, there are simply a lot of unfortunate realities that they're playing both sides. There's the obvious reality that the left-wing side of things, everyone, the vaccine, the Antichrist, globo homo, these sorts of things, everyone views that as coming from the left, Davos, the World Economic Forum, eating the bugs, transgenderism, all of this stuff. But the reality is it will be a sort of, both sides will play their roles in creating the beast system. And there's going to have to be an entire right-wing component, in this sort of authoritarianism where mass deportations, infrastructure for mass deportations, some of this militarism stuff, that will then be used. And this is, I hate sounding like such a libertarian right now, but there's no reason to think that a lot of that won't be used against American citizens. I mean, Alex Karp at Palantir, he openly talks about how his biggest fear is that nationalist Christians will rise up and defenestrate him, throw him out the proverbial window as a Jew, which I think he's even implying there that he's not even necessarily afraid of getting killed or some kind of Holocaust or other nonsense happening. He's afraid of being removed from political power. He's afraid of being removed from the elite of society. He's afraid of not being given the privilege that he has been able to amount due ultimately to Jewish supremacism and nepotism within society. And I think the situation right now where all this AI stuff is having this big nexus with Israel, the biggest thing that you can now have your, completely, they will use facial recognition to track you. They will look at all of your social media presence. They will figure out everything about you. I mean, we already know about the Canary mission. Many people that I know and I'm friends with have pages on the Canary mission, which is basically just a Jewish doxing website that will dox anybody that supports Palestine or goes against the Zionist agenda. That's how these things work. So unfortunately, it appears that the cat's already out of the bag at a certain level. There's nothing we can really do about some of this as far as the information harvesting from AI, because Jews are already behind that with Thiel and Palantir, Anduril, and of course, OpenAI with Sam Altman. I mean, these are, besides the fact that a lot of these people are insane transhumanist freaks, they're also Zionist Jews. And if they're not Zionist Jews, they're these globo homo open society type Jews that would be happy to arrest people for anti-Semitism, even if, maybe they'd be more sympathetic to somebody that is pro-Palestine. But I don't know. I could do a bunch of shows just scrolling through the schizo information on my saved folder here on Telegram. Whoops. But still figuring all this out. But ultimately, I think the realities behind a sort of impending matrix superstate that is people are going to say it's the Noahide laws. People are obviously going to talk about the Antichrist system. But I think if we don't organize politically in a sense that does have a connection with the church and religiosity against a lot of this, I think some of it is, this is going to happen at some point on the timeline. But I believe through our repentance and, through repentance paired with genuine righteous political action, I believe some of these things can be prevented. And this is why there is really no kind of excuse or reason for people that are going to say, all you talk about is Jews, all you talk about is Israel, all you talk about this, because all the other stuff is stuff that could easily be taken care of politically, socially, if that fifth column was removed from power. And this isn't exactly a people are saying David Goldberg wasn't a real person. I can't just believe everything someone in the chat says. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. But I believe the insights into Stephen Miller being a radical Zionist that's willing to use the deportation and tag, track, and ID mechanism currently being used against certain anti-Israel dissidents that don't currently have American citizenship. I think it's a bit too on the nose to be completely ignored. But, maybe it's bullshit. But, anybody has any other things we want to discuss, feel free to send a super chat. I'm free to talk about all sorts of things. What did I have? I had some other things pulled up. Yes. I knew I had a few other things that we wanted to talk about. And there was a recent, honestly, I didn't find it super interesting, the actual document itself. The fact that the document exists, I think, is the most interesting thing. But this post from Craig Trulia kind of points to the broader phenomenon I want to talk about. Of course, the original post is from OrthoChristian. I had already seen this on the Antiochian website because I get emails and whatnot as a member of the Antiochian Orthodox Church. But it says, head of Antiochian Archdiocese, Metropolitan Saba, we can't share sacraments with non-Chalcedonians. Metropolitan Saba wrote the article, burping, in response to a sensitive issue that has been raised in various circles within his archdiocese, noting that many faithful are confused then the article goes on. So it goes on to basically say that, while yes, we share a lot of places in the old country and in America with the quote-unquote Orthodox Christians, the non-Chalcedonians, which, of course, for those that don't know, we're talking Copts, Armenians, Syriacs, Malankara, Ethiopian Tewahedo. These are the people we're talking about. But yeah, for everybody watching, we have a decent audience. Be sure to like the stream and share. It really helps us out. But the likes, again, I forget to ask, but the likes are very important. It helps the stream get seen by more people. But ultimately, the statement says that it is unacceptable to open up the chalice to these people, which is unfortunately something that occurs within the Antiochian Archdiocese. And Paisios in the chat is pointing out the reality of the situation, which is, yes, this did sometimes occur in the United States, and now there's officially zero excuse to allow any of this to happen. The Metropolitan has spoken. However, and now it is important to notice that Metropolitan Saba is an old country bishop himself. He was a bishop in Syria and Lebanon in the past. But now that he is the Metropolitan of America, his influence over the old country is less. And the place that this occurs by far the most is in the old country. It's in Syria, it's in Lebanon, it's in Palestine, it's in Jordan. That is where this intercommunion unfortunately occurs, because there are informal agreements between Patriarch John of Antioch, the Maronite Catholic Patriarch or Bishop, whatever his name is, as well, Melkite Catholics too, and then of course the Copts and the Armenians and the Syriacs, to have a sort of informal open communion with one another. And I know there are traditional priests in the whole country that don't do this, but unfortunately there are many ecumenists, there are many people that feel more solidarity with other Arab Christians due to their proximity to Islam and their kind of mutual persecution that they've experienced. So while I can be sympathetic to that, that is not an excuse to openly defy the canons, to openly defy the church. And I do hope that, perhaps in the future, Metropolitan Saba will become the Patriarch of Antioch and be able to stop this. Or at the very least, the other bishops in the church can see and take, Metropolitan Saba's example and run with it and make sure that none of that occurs in the future. But what does Craig say? Craig says the episcopate should take notice that the laity does not want ecumenism. The amount of views an article like the below receives versus one of any other topic shows that they misread the thoughts of their flock. The idea that the people don't feel invested is unfounded. And this is so true because among more ecumenical-minded priests and whatnot, there's sort of a villainization and a disdain for anybody that kind of cares about church politics, that cares about what's going on with the bishops. And yes, people can become monsters and get way too carried away and start to judge the hierarchy. Next thing you know, they're on a one-way trip to joining the old calendarists or something ridiculous like that, which I would never support. But this idea that committed people aren't going to be concerned with the goings-on of their church is absurd. If people recognize the church as what it is, the pillar and ground of truth, then the people that are in charge of it, the bishops, the people that are chosen and consecrated and have hands laid on them to rightly divide the word of thy truth, as it says in the liturgy, that's going to be pretty interesting. I actually find it very fascinating. It's why I became the host of World War Now. It's why I went to school for journalism and focused in religious journalism in my classes, because I find this stuff sort of interesting. So I'm grateful to see Metropolitan Saba. What if someone says, white people are being murdered and replaced in our own countries? Who gives an S about who receives communion? Well, Dingbat Goldfarb. I got just done talking about for 20 minutes about how the Jews are replacing us in our own countries. I guess you missed that part of the stream, but why does it matter? It matters because Jesus said, this is my body and this is my blood. And there's only one church, and we can't be in communion with people that reject the majority of the ecumenical councils, because theology is the queen of the sciences. And just because, white people need to do certain things, that doesn't mean that they don't need to also be focused on the transcendent truths of reality. But I think I'm just going to put that person in a timeout. And if they keep talking, feel free to ban them, moderators. But ultimately, if anyone wants to discuss anything else, be sure to leave a super chat. But regardless, I was pleased to see this from Metropolitan Sab. I think it could have been slightly more clear, because he does still seem to effectively be in favor of these, I don't want to say ecumenical meetings, but these sort of discussions, everything. And unless somebody truly designs a roadmap for how the non-Chalcedonians can accept the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th ecumenical councils, enter into a liturgical communion with us, and then, of course, somehow deal with the issue that is their Synoxarian, that at this point has hundreds of saints, people that we would not recognize as Orthodox, that died outside of communion with the Orthodox Church. Some of them denounced heretics like Severus of Antioch or Dioscorus. I think the situation is going to be a bit difficult. Unfortunately, I don't see how a union occurs outside of some sort of miraculous intervention of the Holy Spirit, outside of an unfortunately ecumenist context. But, maybe something will be revealed. I think the main issue is the calendar of saints, because there are certain saints, especially in the era of Chalcedon, that are going directly against each other in both of these churches. And look, if the Orientals want to completely throw aside Dioscorus and Severus, and then their later saints like Pope Shenouda, some of these other people that preached heresy, then that would be great. I just don't think they're going to want to do that. They might be completely willing to embrace the theology of Chalcedon, but when it comes to that kind of popular piety, that is where these things get difficult. That's why I'm very skeptical of really any sort of potential reunion with the papists before the Antichrist comes, because how are we going to deal with all of their saints, that some of them we know are not saints, like any of these histrionic female saints that Jay Dyer talks about, with Catherine of Siena, or some of these other people that talk about sort of divine orgasms from Christ and having rings made out of Christ's foreskin, or drinking from the breasts of the Theotokos. I mean, these things I don't even like talking about them, and I'm sure Catholics will correct me on how I'm taking these things out of context, but these are not people that we can accept as people that we pray for the intercession of. That's not something that we can necessarily just decide we want to entertain. So I don't know. I'm no church theologian. I'm no priest. I'm no bishop. So my opinion doesn't mean anything. But that's just sort of my observations. And Craig is very much right that it would be very refreshing if in the future bishops sort of treated the people, especially in this flock in America, as a bit more enculturated and as a bit more aware, because we very much are aware, and we very much do not want ecumenism or modernism. We want people to stick to the tradition, and we want to, live like the saints and hear about people that live like the saints. So we want to see bishops that do emulate the saints, because the fact that we have bishops, the fact that we have true apostolic succession, the fact that our bishops are, the Holy Spirit is called down upon them, and they again have the power to rightly divide the word of thy truth, the truth of Christ. That is something that is very powerful. I'm very grateful that I'm able to receive the blessing from Metropolitan Isaiah in his retired form, somewhat regularly, where I'm at today. So that's that. I don't know if I want to tease too much. I know Father Peter isn't streaming tonight, so another reason why hopefully we have some more audience. We're not getting stream cucked by Papa Petro. But I saw Father Peter recently, and he gave me a book, an unreleased book actually, about many, many prophecies about World War III. I may even have it right here, but I don't know if I should show it on the stream. Maybe I can show the back or something. Yeah, there's the back of the book, unreleased, full of some very interesting prophecies, very interesting discussions of the realities there. And I actually can't tell you when. I don't even know when. I'm talking too much. I don't actually know enough of the information. But when the book will be released, of course, we will be the first people to be talking about it. I'm reading through it already. It's some fantastic stuff. I've read a lot of good books around here. I recently finished, of course, when we will not be, if we are not crucified, we will not be resurrected. We will not be glorified, by Metropolitan Neophytos of Morphu. A fantastic book. Hopefully more books from His Eminence will be forthcoming. But this book, one of the main reasons I don't want to show the title as well is because it is not the final title. And I just don't want to show it because people will screenshot it and be like, oh. But, maybe I'm playing it. Maybe I shouldn't have mentioned it at all. Now I'm just playing it up for the stream. But I'm going to be diving into this. And even if, maybe it'll be a few weeks before we do a full analysis of it. Maybe we'll do an ether hour about it. But I'm very much going to be incorporating what's in this book into my analysis of current events. We've got Thaddius in the chat. He says, Father Paul T. was reading from the Metropolitan Neophytos book from His Eminence during Lent. It was awesome. Everyone should get it. I agree. Everyone should get it. I was at the monastery recently, and they had a copy of it there. It immediately sold, so it's a popular one. But I spoke to Metropolitan Neophytos back in August, right before this book came out, and I don't quote me on this. It might have been this book, or it might have been a different book that is forthcoming to be translated. But I almost believe that it was this book, where one of the reasons these homilies were collected is because a woman in Bulgaria was listening to radio audio recordings of Metropolitan Neophytos' homilies, and on certain homilies, and she noticed especially homilies where he was talking about God the Father, she had an icon in her room that would start to become fragrant. It would give off a miraculous fragrance. And so basically they collected the specific sermons and homilies that made this icon fragrant and collected them into this book. And I can't remember if that's this book that's been released or another book, because I held the book in my hands that might still just be in Greek. I think that might still be forthcoming, but that's going to be, that's one of the stories there. And of course, another detail of the story is obviously His Eminence didn't just immediately trust this quote unquote miracle. When this woman told him this, he was immediately skeptical, and he said, you need to go and put this icon on the relics of Saint David or Saint Daniel of Riga, I believe who it is. It was a saint whose relics are in the cathedral in Riga, in Sofia, or somewhere in Bulgaria. It was this Bulgarian saint, and she put the relic on him, and it's continued to be fragrant. So the saint sort of revealed to them that this was in fact a genuine miracle. So there's a chance that is this book and that is those ones, but I think the fact that occurred is just an amazing story. I remember Metropolitan Neophytos told me that story himself, and it was quite powerful. Metropolitan Neophytos, he was such a powerful presence. He's just such a huge guy. Like, he's almost like I'm not calling him a Nephilim or anything, but he's just this huge character. Like, you get his blessing, it's like a catcher's mitt on your hand, and he's got the as Roosh talked about when he first saw Elder Ephraim, that Elder Ephraim had that sort of high contrast glow. You can just sort of see kind of the Holy Spirit emanating. I definitely got a little bit of that from His Eminence Neophytos when I saw him in Evrichu, or however I'm supposed to say it. I'm sure Father Peter will correct me. But we have $5 from Ghost. He says, have you seen the newest book from the Eschaton Vigil on St. Paisios? I'm still waiting for mine to be delivered. I'm waiting on mine to be delivered as well. I need to check my mailbox, honestly. I've heard it's like getting way too full. So after the stream goes off, I'm going to probably check my mailbox. Thank you for the $5, Ghost. Always appreciated. Super chatters are beloved here. If you want to support the show and get access to all of the Ether Hour content, worldwarnow.co. It's linked down below. If you're listening to this on Twitter, X, go to the World War Now profile. It's the link that is in the bio. Get behind the paywall for just $7 a month, $75 a year, and you get access to, at this point, hundreds and hundreds of hours of Ether Hour content. So we greatly appreciate it. Those people donating on the stream continue to make all of this possible as well. People asking if I'm going to play Ethnogesser. Yes, we're going to play some Ethnogesser. Don't worry. Someone asks, when is the Metropolitan Neophytos interview coming? Whenever I can probably get back to Cyprus is the answer. And maybe I can eventually get him, and through Father Peter, to agree to an interview over the internet. But we're going to need, of course, people to translate live from Greek, because His Eminence does not speak English. And it wouldn't just have to just be any Greek speaker. It would have to be a Greek expert. We'd probably have to get Gregory Hears back on, because he could actually understand the vast vocabulary. His Eminence has a vast command of the enormous Greek language. But it's still very much the dream of the podcast to have His Eminence on for an interview. We have many people. Yes, Paisios, he asks the same question in $5 form when the Metropolitan Neophytos. He says, I'm still hopeful for a Metropolitan Isaiah interview. I don't know if the Metropolitan Isaiah interview is ever going to happen, because he has a hard time hearing. Funny story about this book that I'm not showing the cover of. I was walking out of the monastery with it, and Metropolitan Isaiah wanted to ask me what it was. And then the next thing you know, there was a funny thing. Someone was telling him the title, and he was like, what? Because he's very hard of hearing, and it was a very sort of comedic back and forth. But I was able to just get His Eminence Isaiah's blessing. However, I'm not confident that he will be doing any interviews in his time that he has left sojourning this realm. So I encourage everybody, if you know the lore, I'm not going to, give it all away. But if you know the lore, get Metropolitan Isaiah's blessing. He's a good man. But for the Metropolitan Neophytos interview, that's something that I'm very much hoping will be able to come down the pipe soon. There's a few people in the Greek world we're still trying to get on, and he is one of our main people we want to talk to. So hopefully, maybe by this time next year, something like this will have manifested. But we're still accepting super chats. Anybody who wants to talk about something, send in the super chat. But I think we're about to hit exactly 1 hour. Looks like it's probably time to play some Ethnogesser. So we're sharing that tab instead. We're going to play the daily game. So anyone that's already played, I don't know, don't cheat in the chat. But, I'll take a little bit of time. If anybody really wants me to guess something and they give a bit of money, I'll happily guess that for them. But let's dive right in. All right. We've got Africans. Again, I just kind of want to say West Africa, but last time I went with West Africa, I got cucked by the Bantu expansion. So I'm almost tempted to go Congo, maybe even Uganda. Where's Uganda? Are these Ugandans? I don't know. I'm just going to go back over West Africa. Cameroon. I should have been thinking of more central West Africa. Not my best moment, but let's move on. Alrighty. We've got... See, this guy looks more African, but then the woman really throws it off, looking more subcontinental almost. But I think at this point we're definitely talking East Africa. Maybe even Eritrea, Ethiopia, or coastal Sudan, perhaps. Yeah, people are saying South Sudan. I think I'm gonna go right here. Yeah, just Sudan. Should have gone in Dongola. Eba, Dongola. Orbalantia. No, these are indeed Eastern Africans. The Middle Nile. Some Nilotes. Oh boy. We got some Maasai. We got some dark Africans. I'm almost tempted to go like Zambia here. We thinking Zambia. We thinking Congo. I'm thinking we gotta go. I'm going Zambia. Uganda, Kenya, yeah. A little too south. I was getting a little too excited about the lions and the tigers and all that going on there. I should have held back, But if I ever go to Africa, I've always said I want to go to Tanzania. Climb Mount Kilimanjaro, you can see the savannah, you can see all the big animals, lions, elephants, zebras, water buffalo, leopards, all that kind of stuff. And I want to pay my respects to Magufuli, the former president of Tanzania who resisted the vaccine, who resisted Zog, who, issued national days of prayer instead of mandating COVID tests. So mad respect to him. We got $2 from Paisios again. Thank you, Paisios. Any updates on the Gabriel? Everyone keeps saying Gabriel the Russian. His name is Gabriel Doroshin, Doroshin. But he is also a Russian, so that is real. But we're getting that worked on. Apparently his English is, in the past few years, his English has become not so good, not enough to where he feels super confident doing an English language interview. So we're probably going to be having him and Dimitri talk at some point just in Russian, and then we'll provide a sort of English dub over his answers, when he responds to Dimitri in Russian. So we're working on that. We have his contact. Dimitri has been sending him some messages. We've been talking. So keep it all in your prayers. Hopefully that's something that will be occurring this year. But yeah, I should have stuck with my gut and picked and gone with the Maasai because they're in Western Kenya. But here we go. Oh my gosh, it's all Africa. Now these are some Bantus, or these are some Africans for sure. Now I'm tempted again with like Zambia. Help me, chat. These are some dark-skinned people. I'm almost tempted to go like Malawi or something. Are these not even Africans? Are these like Polynesians of some kind? Are these no way are these like Australian Aboriginals? They don't look Aboriginal. Are these Caribbeans? I feel like I'm going to get this one wrong. But where in Asia would these people be from? These don't look like any people from the subcontinent. Are these some form of Papuans? Are these people? These are not. No way are these. Whatever it is. These are not North Sentinelese. Not a chance. What if they are? Oh. Maldives type people. Got to give it to Maldives. They banned Israelis from coming to their country, so that's based. There's an African connection here, though. I'm not sure how convinced I am of plate tectonics, but there's something going on there. All right. We're back into the Asiatic world. And, the woman's looking kind of Native American. The guy's looking a little, Kung Fu. So I'm almost tempted with Alaska here. Anyone else feeling Alaska? Am I out of pocket on that? Yeah, Eastern Siberia. I don't think Guatemala. A little too Asian. Thinking maybe over here. Something like that. Man, maybe they are Central Asians. People saying South America now are confusing me. They look too, I don't know. If it's South America, I'm going to feel really dumb. It was. Dang it. It's not what I was going to guess at all. See, these are some like Andean people. The South Fugid. Most characteristic Fugid variety adapted to the cool climate of southern Chile. Tierra del Fuego. Yeah, this is some like Flight of the Condor, Tintin in the Andes, Southern Hemisphere Sherpa type beat. So I got to up my game on that. Oh boy. This is like the future right here. This is what they want everyone to look like in 200 years. They definitely are Hispanic, I think. These like Ecuador people, Bolivians. These people kind of look Bolivian. I should have stuck with Ecuador. The Choco Motillo, special type found in Colombia, Venezuela, as well as Panama, contains Brazilian elements, as well as relics of one of the first migrations to South America. Similarities with Fugids, so similar to what we got last time. All right. Okay. Something akin to an Indo-European. Now, these could be like Persians. They've got the freaking big schnoz for this, this part of the world as opposed to what we got going on up here. I mean, obviously these are not scans or anything like that, but the question is, are these like some kind of Greek or some kind of Mediterranean variety, or are these Persians? I'm feeling more Persian here, maybe even up into this might even be Tajiks, because Tajiks are also Persian. So I'm going to guess out in Iran right here. No way. These like gypsies or something? Brutal. I should have thought more about this one. Yeah, these are like, what is it? It says, type is commonly found among Serbs, Croats, Montenegrins, Bosniaks, and their relatives. I was just too hopeful that those people would look more white. Not my best round here. Okay. These are Mongolians. These are either Mongolians or maybe they exist in some other part of China. But I'm going Mongolia. Oh, man. These are Amur Sakalins, a distinctive Tungid variety, probably split from neighboring types at the end of the Paleolithic, native to parts of the Sakhalin-Amur region, typified by Nivsk mixed in Ulches. I can't even pronounce some of this. Related to Aleuts. So these people are related to the Aleut Orthodox natives, I guess. They made it over there at some point. Man, I'm not doing well today. Oh boy, more Africans. These look more West African, almost similar to the Cameroon vibes we got, but then there's the Caribbean possibility. Yeah, it's not my best round today. I'm also exhausted, but that's just cope, I guess. Like, these people could be like Haitians. For I guess this, I've got $5 from I Like to Eat Salt. Would you consider sailing around the world to test if it is flat? Well, they don't let you go down past the 60th south parallel. So it's not like I'm really allowed to actually do anything that would be able to figure it out. But I'm into sailing. I'd love to do some sailing, from around long areas at some point. I'd love to go to the Arctic as well. He says, also, are you considering expanding World War Now output by recruiting people from the Discord? Well, I've been trying to get people to do some pretty basic things and nobody's stepped up to do it. I'm trying to recruit people to make clips of the show. I've asked people many times to please make some clips of their favorite moments from the show, maybe add some visuals, some graphics, and then we would be pushing that everywhere. We want to have some viral related content. But as far as expanding, I mean, we're going to have to get a lot more money. I mean, if we were ever to actually have more people involved in the show, we would need like angel investors. We would need real donors to get a few tens of thousands of more dollars coming into this operation, because even under our current situation, even if we dramatically increased the money, that would just really be getting me to the point where it's more just like a regular job, as opposed to, I'm kind of just grinding on content mode here. So not that I love to e-beg, but we very much need more paid subscribers. Specifically, that's the best thing you can do to help the show, is become a paid subscriber at worldwarnow.co. But we're back to this guess on these people. Not Nigeria. Not Cameroon like we did last time. Could this be like South Africa? Could this be... These aren't like American blacks, I don't think. Maybe Namibia. Thinking about this one. Don't want to do another embarrassing guess. Got to finish these last 2-1 strong. Gabon. I'm going to go Senegal. I knew it was... I almost clicked Namibia. I was literally going to click like southern Namibia. I swear. I'm not just coping. Should have gone with my gut. All right, let's try to finish strong here. Oh boy. I can't tell if these are Hispanics or Filipinos, man. No, I think these are Hispanics. The woman gives it away. I'm thinking Northern South America. Thinking here. Okay. Finally. A perfect score. Not my best work, folks. Not my best work. But we finished strong. Look, what is this? Just the path they take through the Darien Gap to invade America? Is that what this shows? So it would seem. But all right, that's been this round's. Yeah, someone's saying like the woman has been giving it away a lot more than the man recently. I don't know why that is, but that's real. Let me try to get this play. All right, everybody. We've reached the end of the stream. Be sure to subscribe at worldwarnow.co, whether you want to get behind the paywall or if you want to just subscribe for free to get every show in your email inbox on your Substack app. My hair is going crazy. Follow on Substack. Of course, we will have another episode of World War Now. Hopefully that one will be back to the normal schedule where we record on Friday, release it on Sunday. We're obviously going to be releasing the new Ether Hour where we talk to Truth Teller about Jewish Bolshevism, his recent debate against Haas on MAGA communism and all this nonsense. So be sure to subscribe, get behind the paywall, check out that. Some really great content. Truth Teller, a fan favorite. So if anybody has any final super chats, questions, comments, concerns, whatever you want to yap about, send them now because I'm about to be signing off. Of course, everybody that didn't, I appreciate everybody that came directly from the premiere of Buck's episode with me. But if you haven't already, be sure to watch this.
I'm sure you know by
episode.
now that
ads.
there are literally thousands of women earning 6 and 7 figures.
But yes, I'm not going to play the whole thing right now. Don't want to steal votes from views from Buck or anything, but I'm going to go ahead and like it. I know it was good because I was in it. But he says, Conrad Franz is back with us this week. Conrad is one of the 2 excellent hosts of the World War Now podcast. Thank you. Conrad and I discussed the kinetic conflicts going on in several hotspots around the globe as viewed from an Orthodox lens. We discussed what happened in Syria as well. Why is Israel always pushing for war and conflict around the world? Many Orthodox Christian saints have prophecies they've made regarding these issues. We discussed those and more in this episode of Counterflow. So be sure to check this one out. I'll even send this in the link in the live chat. So anybody that wants to directly go over there can check it right out. This kind of reminds me of there we go. $5 from Pantaleimon. Great name. Pantaleimon, amazing saint, healer saint. He says, I just joined the Substack paid subscription. Thank you, sir, for the $5 and for what I assume is the $7 that you have pledged for each month. Greatly appreciated. I hope you enjoy the Ether Hour content. I've said this before on the show. I want to make sure everybody gets it. If you are behind the paywall, be sure to go to the Ether Hour tab on World War Now on the Substack and scroll back. We have some amazing perennial episodes. Most of those episodes are not about current events. We have great episodes with Jay Dyer. We have great episodes with Jim Jatras. We have episodes with Abbott Trefon. Episodes with Father Peter, episodes with Father Joseph Gleason, talking all about Genesis and creation and why evolution is a lie. We have all sorts of amazing historical episodes about the truths of Russian history, about what really was going on with the supposed pogroms that everyone always talks about, with how evil the Cossacks and Russians were against the Jews, and how there's a direct connection between the Jewish anti-Tsarist terrorists in Russia that then went to Palestine and fought against the Palestinians, the British, everybody there to help establish the Zionist entity. We have all sorts of episodes about Russian peasant legends surrounding the supposed flat earth and the North Pole and the White Tsar and all sorts of things like that. We have amazing episodes with Gregory Hears about the prophecies of St. John Vatatzis, the most extensive podcast episodes on the entire internet about St. John Vatatzis and the prophecies of his return as the Marble Emperor. So again, get behind that Ether Hour paywall and check out the hundreds and hundreds of paid episodes that we have in the backlog, because I can assure you, you will find something that you are interested in. Interviews about iconography with Shane Swenson, interviews about Syria and deep Syrian politics with Maram, Syrian Girl, all sorts of stuff. As of course, all of our incredible episodes with Anthony of Westgate, including his recent appearance with us about the Jewish Kabbalistic roots of the Protestant Reformation. So worldwarnow.co, it's linked below, it's linked on the X account. Check all of it out. Thank you, Pantaleimon, for supporting. And with all of that, I think we are reaching about an hour 20 here. I'm going to sign off. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Be sure to follow me on X at GnomeRad. Yes, Paisio says the Land of Chud episode. I believe that's episode 12 of Ether Hour, one of the best. So be sure to check that out as well. Follow me on X at GnomeRad. Follow World War Now on X at WorldWarNow_. Subscribe here on YouTube. Like the video, share, leave a comment. Really all helps us out. WorldWarNow.co free or paid. That is our home base where you can subscribe to us. Be sure to subscribe on Telegram as well. World War Now Telly. That is where we keep a 24-hour news feed going at all times. Again, thank you so much for all of the support, everybody. I know my hair is a little messed up, a little tired this evening, but greatly appreciate everybody for tuning in. I cannot thank you all enough. You are the ones that keep everything going here at the proverbial World War Now bunker. Got a super sticker from Ghost for $2. Thank you, sir. That might be the first super sticker someone has left. I barely even know what they are, but boy, is it greatly appreciated. And with all of that, I will be signing off, leaving you with the wonderful World War Now Brotherhood's outro as we get the share screen going here. But yeah, hope everybody has a wonderful evening. God bless. Christ is risen.